Hello, this is Diane and David again.
Hello.
Hello, yes. We just wanted to bring again some relevant points, but with a Christian ethos. So here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, a question going through my mind and probably many others out there as well. Why does Theresa May have such a narrow margin with Labour to regain points? So
So
what do you think?
So okay.
Why has that happened?
We've, as we're all obviously aware of, we've had our election last Thursday, and of course we were told that the Conservative Party under Theresa May would have a landslide, and of course we all sort of we take what we get in the newspapers and things like that with a pinch of salt, and I mean some obviously are exaggerated for their own sort of readership, but I mean a lot of them, you are looking for that the poll that they're issuing is unbiased, and of course it's going to be nearer to the truth of it. But of course they all were saying that the Conservatives were going to win, so of course that's what everybody was expecting. So
so it's been quite a shock, hasn't it, and especially for Theresa May in the respect of she's very confident in her own agenda and her own outlines, and her things obviously that she was putting forward were in her eyes were positives. So but I believe that God has intervened, and she's become very the difference between Theresa May, the Conservatives, and the Labour Party was very narrow, as we've identified. We all know now. But what I believe it goes back to is the Christian ethics on this, is back to the Bible. So Theresa May has had a Christian background, but the question is, does she believe in the Christian beliefs that she has had, that shaped her, that dominated her life as a child and a young woman? I would say that, like many others before her, she has diluted the truth and taken advice from the ungodly. What do you say, David, about that?
I can see you're sort of letting that sort of a description of people that are they're quite aware of the Christian faith, mostly when they went to went to infant school, which now primary, and mostly had that sort of influence, and maybe even had a family that said they were Christian, even though they were non-practicing Christians. Where obviously Theresa May had a father who was a vicar, so of course they were practicing Christians. But I see where you're coming from, Dan. You're sort of going around this sort of thing where you don't really think she's a Christian, obviously, because she says she is. And I know this is part of what we were sort of saying about in our videos, is that we'd like to see more people not only say that they're Christians, but actually why they are. And then it's just because of Jesus Christ, and that's what we want people to sort of see, is that in a sort of secular society that we have, there is many faiths and many those that have no faith at all. But when we have this sort of tragedy that was not the election, but I mean the terrible atrocities in London and in Manchester, that of course everybody pulled together. Everybody had that sort of feeling that this was wrong. We're a country that is a place where people want to come to. you know, our population is growing all the time. It's not getting smaller.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah. Now your Theresa May thing and she was taking advice from ungodly people. Well, I think that is true of many places that we work. That you listen to, like I say, people's advice, and I mean, I listen to people's advice. Obviously, in the workplaces, but I don't listen to their advice when it's something to do with my finances or my family and things like that. That I would only ever, ask another Christian for their advice or what they would do, while I'm sort of, sort of asking, praying, to ask Jesus, what am I supposed to do about this? And of course, this particular week, these few days after the election, I know that what we've been talking about here is that how she kept saying, Theresa May kept saying, don't vote for Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, because you'll end up with some sort of awful coalition, and that's you're going to take the country down a path that nobody really wants to go down. And of course now Theresa May is, although she's got nearly enough seats, she hasn't quite got nearly enough seats. So she's seeking help from the Ulster Unionists. Now, as I say, we like to consider ourselves as that we are Christians, but we don't sort of go for that sort of extreme dogmatic type of Christian where we're anti-gay, we're anti. I mean, we're not. We don't sort of think that people that we see that we're all sinners, that we've all done something wrong from the message.
I think you discussed that in the last message actually. So let me bring in some other things as well, but it's a relevant point. So we get back to many Christians are misled, and they dilute the truth so it's more palatable for others, and then they lose their way. And that's really the key to this, is that the advice that Theresa May has taken from the ungodly has nearly cost her position in power. So you see, God says, look after the poor, the orphan, the widows, the elderly. And you see, when you start neglecting the young and the vulnerable, then God, he gives and he takes away, will certainly let us know when we lose sight of the real values that we should all hold dear to. So I just wanted to express that and see that, as many politicians get in a position of power, then what they aimed for, what they started off with as their agenda, if you like, and they've set out some things that they would like to achieve whilst in power, and yet it's washed away, or it never comes about. And we all become very disillusioned and very we start to question politicians and say, well, you're all the same. You promise us this, and you will use education, or use the NHS as a tool to get yourself in a position of power. But then, and I think we spoke about this last time as well, that are they accountable once they're in that position? And because politicians are very diplomatic, they're very good at avoiding the truth. Then it's very difficult to put them, on in a position to say, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. They're not accountable.
No.
That's
I mean, we said that they're accountable over the elections every 5 years or so. But it's again when we go in. I mean, how like I say, we want to be a reflection of just ordinary people in this country, and we see ourselves as just ordinary people in this country. And so, of course, we're talking to you, other ordinary people in this country, see how you feel, and some of the politicians and some of the the political commentators that have been on the telly over this last week, they're saying things like the economy's doing well, we're about the 5th richest nation on the earth, and yet, of course, I can understand where Jeremy Corbyn was coming from when he was saying, yeah, but why have we got food banks? Why is there people that are sleeping on the street? If we're so rich, how come we seem to be so poor? And this, you do question that. You do question what is the difference of this thing? Because I mean, I say to people, they'll say, oh, there's a lot of homeless people, and I saw this guy sleeping in the doorway, and I look at them and I think, did you go over to help? Did you offer any sort of help? You all right, mate? And they say, oh no, just walk by. A lot of these people could be druggies. They could be thinking to me, it's a difficult thing, and okay, I've got my sort of point of view, but I sort of think, when you looked at that person that was, on the cardboard, sleeping in an old sleeping bag or something, do you think that they actually had a plan that they were going to do that? They were sort of, a 14-year-old chap, and he thought, oh, when I grow old, I'm going to sleep in Marks and Spencer's doorway in an old carrier bag. Do you think that was actually his plan? Come on. I mean, we all need to wake up.
Yeah.
If you ask me why we're doing these videos, I said last week, I want to wake us up. We seem to have some sort of, I don't know, there's something that's happened to us.
Malaise.
Yeah, and we just or she was just asleep in the doorway. He never even went over to say, are you okay? Do you think that was their plan? Do you really think that's where they were, it might have where they ended up because of their choices. And believe me, I do understand that, taking, severe drugs is going to end up in that thing. But it certainly couldn't have been their wish to be there. It's how they got. Now, of course, ours, and I mean, I'm talking about Christians, non-Christians, in this country, people of other faiths, surely we should do something about it. We should either help them to get out. There should be somewhere where we can go down to the town and, somewhere that we can help to support these sort of homeless people. Or, of course, we should vote for people that actually say, oh, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
We'll have to do it. We can't just leave it, can we?
Yeah.
And of course, that's what Jeremy Corbyn started to say. Now, I wasn't a particular Corbyn fan. I can understand that in his past that he had, things that people have sort of said. He had associations with, communism, terrorism, the IRA, Hamas. And then, of course, you go down this thing of was he anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, all this sort of thing. But, of course, when you're young, you do have different things that you go into in that sort of line of politics, or in everyday life anyway. And, then, of course, when you get older, you can change your mind. That's part of being... a born-again Christian. Yeah,
and I think that goes on to that actually is quite relevant to some of the points that I've been thinking about anyway and been raising, and also you've been thinking about. So, and just, you see, the Lord tests the heart of man for faithfulness. And you see, Theresa May saw power more than she saw the people. and the need of the people. You see, she started off right by saying once that she was here to help those that were just about managing. Do you remember the jams? And where did that go? Where is that? What's happened to that? It's never spoken about ever again.
Yeah.
And so you see, if we lose sight, and I believe she had lost sight of her true vision, and lose sight of the need of the people, and then not only that, but you turn a blind eye to those most in need, and that is, as you rightly said, the homeless, the vulnerable, the weak, the poor, and so on and so on. And that, in God's eyes, in God's heart, is for his, ultimately is for his people. He doesn't care about power. You know, power is what we all seek. God naturally has power, but he has power because he is ultimately God, and he's a loving God, and he's a righteous God, and he cares for his people. And that's the true mark of a leader. A leader will lay down their life for a person, you know, and the people know that, and that's what they respect, and they know that they're loved by their leader, and they love their leader back. So that's the key to leadership. If you want a key to leadership, it is one of the hierarchies of need is love. There are other hierarchies, but the most important for people, everybody to have, and everybody seeks and needs, from your employer, going from your employer to your next door neighbour, to your family, to your friends, is love. You don't care about anything else. Money is in there, and we know that, but if you're working for somebody, then if they treat you very badly, and they have no respect for you, and they have no care for you, then I don't think many of us will stay in that job for very long.
No. I mean, obviously, you know, in the society that we live in, we need the money. We have to go to work, or if we fall out of work, we get benefits. But I mean, it is that thing that, you know, Diane is saying, that leaders, we do have a tendency to admire somebody that we can trust, and we think, oh yeah, whatever they say, we'll go along with that. That sounds really good. And of course, in the workplace, that is, you know, that happens many a time. We do, you know, we get somebody that's in charge, and we sort of have a tendency to think, yeah, you know, she really knows what she's doing, so, you know, let's go along with that. But there's also people that I meet, and they say, oh, I hate my job, I absolutely detest it. And I think to myself, why are you doing that? Why would you possibly do something, you know, that you hate? I mean, okay, you take a job, you didn't know what it was about, and you then, you know, look for another one and get out because you hated it. But I'm talking about these people that you think, you know, I've been there 20 years and I absolutely hate it. And I think, oh, that is unbelievably sad that you're actually, you know, spending your time here on earth doing a job that you absolutely detest. How sad is that? You should not do that. You know, that is just wrong thinking. It's part of what I'm trying to say about our country. We have so much wrong thinking. You know, this political system, it is just so politically wrong if we've got people on the streets that are in sleeping rough. And of course, the other one that was brought up was, of course, these food banks. You know, something, you know, you get a politician on there, and, oh yes, we're the fifth wealthiest nation in the world, and yet we've got people going to food banks. That doesn't ring right, does it? There's something that is not right here, where people are having to go to food banks in such a wealthy country. You know,
it is a shame upon our government, and a shame upon our leadership, and those people in power, because those are the very things that the Lord talks about and tells us that we must address first and foremost. And then all those other things will come to you, all the blessings, all the riches, all the things, because of your kind acts, because of your gentleness, because of your kind heart.
Yeah.
You know, the Lord says that He finds it's hard to find a person that, you know, is faithful upon the earth. And is it coming to that time once again, you know, in the days of Noah, where there was a godly man, and Noah was it. He was the only godly man that would listen to God and would do exactly what God told him to do without question, and without favour, and without fault. And that's what we have to see again, that maybe we're coming to those times again.
I think that's what it is, Diane. I think that, you know, we're feeling as though the things are going to have to change. You know, I don't particularly want to see any extreme party to the right. I don't want to see any extreme party to the left. But in the middle ground, where most of them have hugged in the face and they've come to sort of, you know, settle in that middle area, that means they've done nothing. And, you know, the whole thing about austerity now seems to be dead and buried. In fact, it wants to be dead and buried. I mean, it was just another ridiculous concept, you know. Somebody come along to you and say, you know, well, you've got to live within your means. And you've got to have your sort of thing. If you were earning X amount of pounds and you spend more than X amount of pounds in the week or the month, then you haven't got any money. Yeah, but we know that. But then again, we live in this, like I say, we live in man's world, not in God's world. So we just go down the bank and we ask for an overdraft. Yeah. And that's exactly what obviously the government does. It asks for an overdraft, it borrows some money. And at the moment, obviously, we're presuming that money is easy to get because the interest rates are so low. I mean, I feel sorry for the people that are saving or haven't savers, because they're seeing no benefit to their savings whatsoever. So, you know, the whole thing about austerity, that's been lost. That has just been a complete waste of them political years. Now, of course, you know, what is the thing? And I said to you, I don't want to sort of sound as though, you know, we're less politicise this whole thing about Jesus Christ. But I still truly believe that if your politician stands up there and says, I want to do the most for the most of you, then that seems the one that I would vote for. That seems to be completely logical. And totally illogical to think to myself, I'll tell you what, I'll vote for somebody that's not going to do nothing for us at all. They've said, you know, better not to do anything, you know, let's not do anything at all. And so, you know, that just doesn't seem. And then because we talked, I mean, I talked a bit at length last week about education, and then of course Diane is, you know, working for the health service, and of course, you know, people keep saying, oh, the NHS, it needs that, and of course it's the best in the country, in the world. You know, and again, like I say, you know, it's a bit like how I said about democracy. It's been copied everywhere. That wants to have the finest health service. And yet, you know, in our local hospital here, I mean, Diane works in one of them, but, you know, in another one, we went down there and I just went in and had a blood test done, and it was done by Virgin Care. No, I've got nothing against Virgin Care. I mean, Richard Branson seems to be, you know, another sort of nice enough bloke. But why are you in the health service? I thought it was the NHS, isn't it? It's this privatisation by the back door. Do we really know what's going on when somebody stands there, a politician, and says, the health service is safe with us, it's safe in our hands? Is it? Is it really?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because it actually, and this is what we mean about, you know, we're in a malaise, or, you know, where it's almost like things are going on around us, and we are aware. We've heard of Virgin Care, we've heard of this, and we know Richard Branson is going into the health care sector and asking why, and thinking to ourselves, well, this is very odd. But it seems that the National Health Service is being dissembled before our eyes, but we're not aware of it. No. And most people, and people that are not in the health service, perhaps aren't aware of it either. No. But like you said, David, I think it is going through and round by the back door without our say so without our permission, because we don't want it. We haven't asked for that. And so how is it that, Richard Branson is now, has a contract, and I don't even think he has it with the NHS. I think he's bought, a proportion of the health, the health service, and
it's a contract, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a contract, but he runs it. He's basically, the way he does it is that he's been allowed to take a chunk of our NHS, and even in social services. Don't think it's just happening in the NHS, but it's happening in social services. So we have to be aware that things are changing, but not what we've asked for.
Yeah.
So when the politicians are saying to you, we're going to provide this, we're going to pour millions and billions of pounds, I don't know where they're going to get it from, into the NHS. What for? They're selling it off. And it's like most things, the railway and the BT and, anything else they can give up and sell, they seem to sell. But why should you destroy something that is good? And why should you, it is a good service. I mean, the amount of people, if this was a business, just a sole business without any government interference at all, and you think to yourself, I'm not going to get enough people to accommodate, the services that we're offering.
No.
But this is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
We have, endless streams and streams of people wanting the NHS, wanting the services that we provide. And there is no end to it. And it's a very, it's lucrative business, if you see it like that.
Yeah, that's the way that obviously some politicians do see it, and some business people do see it, is that it's an extremely lucrative business to get into if they could. We sort of, as I said last week, we've had people that have gone, and they live abroad, and what we're gathering from the friends that went to Australia. And then we've also heard from friends that went to America, and of course they're just saying that a great amount of their monthly income goes on health insurance costs, and they,
exactly. And what I wanted to say there, David, is that you see, people would be prepared. I would be prepared to pay more on my national insurance to ensure that the health service was. Was retained, and we didn't lose it. And I think many more would do the same. But how many politicians have even made that suggestion?
Well, there was one that made a suggestion that they put a penny on the national insurance contribution to us all on the tax to pay for it. But it is. See, that is a sign when it's getting down to desperation. It's when we started talking about pennies, and we'll all give a penny and then we should be better off. Or that the health service should be better off.
But I think people are prepared to do it, David, because
I'm not saying that it's not amount to prepared to do it. I'm not saying it, but I'm just, again, like I say, I am questioning the moral sort of area that we're in, the ethical area that we're in, because, I was sort of in the idea where these sort of videos would sort of start to prompt people to think exactly the same way. In fact, you are out there, most really thinking exactly the same way as Diane and myself. That we just deserve better than this. Yeah. And of course, now it looks as though we're going to have an election all over again, because I don't think that Theresa May, even with the DUP, is going to last too long. And they obviously they can survive a few weeks now, and then of course they have the summer recess, so they're all on holiday from sort of July until about October. But in that time, of course, you've also got the party conferences in September, and I just can't see those people that vie for that position, that want to be prime minister themselves. They will just take the opposition to, vote for no confidence, and this is where we are. So I think that there will be another election, sooner rather than later. but I think it's inevitable because it's just the people. Again, we're so sort of thing. The Scottish nationalists, where they came up, and then of course you had Alex Salmond and then Nicola Sturgeon, and they sort of said something to the people of Scotland. I mean, we're not Scottish, but we listened to what they said, and they said, let's go for independence. We'd be far better off being an independent Scotland in the EU rather than with Britain that's leaving and all this sort of thing. And the people voted, and of course they voted to stay. And then what you saw then, or you can see, that they have politicians, especially. Alex Salmond he lost his seat, but Nicola Sturgeon's there, and you can tell that she's a broken-hearted woman, because what she wanted, independence, that's what she lives and breathes for, is independent Scotland. She now is not going to get.
Yeah. So let's just summarise this now, because you see, what I feel is that Theresa May now has been made to be righteous by joining the TUP.
D.
Oh, sorry, T. Sorry.
I know you must have never heard of them before either, but
yes. To gain those extra 10 votes. So in a way, the Lord has. She needed those 10 points from the Ulster Unionists. And they have very strong views against same-sex marriage, abortions, and a few other things that we were discussing a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But Theresa May now is being made to be righteous. It just seems so strange and more than a coincidence that the 10 votes, 10 votes, the very 10 votes that she needed to top up her own votes to remain in power were with the Ulster Union.
But then again, nobody else can actually go with it now. I don't want this to turn into a political video. That's not the idea of it. The idea is to let's put a Christian stance on where we're going. But the Liberal Democrats, they went into coalition with David Cameron, and it seems to have been like the kiss of death to him. Even Nick Clegg now, who seemed to be, again, like I say, a decent sort of guy, he's now not the MP for Sheffield anymore. He's out, isn't he? And so they paid a terrible price for this. Now, was it his fault that Cameron and Osborne were the way they were? Were they seen them propping up? But for some reason, their vote has absolutely collapsed. Now, I'm not a Liberal Democrat, so I can't say why this has happened, but it clearly has. By being associated with somebody can really sort of affect you, can't it? And of course this now with the DUP. Now, I remember them just as because of Ian Paisley. He was the leader of that party, and a great man, in many ways. But of course he also, he had his sort of ways where, it was very difficult for him to come to terms with sharing with with Sinn Féin, and yet in the end he did. What a remarkable man he ended up. He actually shared with Alec McGuinness, and so he was big enough. He knew that whatever we think, and we think, oh, we don't like you, we don't like them, or we don't like that. In the end, it's God's choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And God wanted peace in Ireland.
Yes.
And through Ian Paisley, Alec McGuinness, they got peace.
Yes.
They got peace.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
That's right. And it's not always the way that you think it's going to be. And that has proved that very point in this recent election. is not the way that Theresa May thought it would be, or any of us actually. No. We could never imagine this. This is why it has been so intriguing for the majority of us, and almost exciting. It's exciting times, but it's also anxious days that we have as well, as to regards with the stability of the country. But God's here to shake us up and wake us up and not for us to fall asleep, because that is the one warning he tells us: do not be asleep when I return. Make sure you're awake, make sure you're alert, make sure you're looking out for the signs, because that day will come, and nobody knows when it will come. But it will come.
But it is that thing that I'm hoping that these things are they're a call sign out there. Wake up. Really wake up, Britain. It's we're not like this. We don't deserve to be and live like this.
And I think that is absolute, and we're going to end on this. I just think that it's a wake-up call to Theresa May, to us Christians, to the nations, to the world. Wake up is the call from the Lord to say, don't fall asleep, be awake. Thank you for listening.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.